Picture this. Sarah Mitchell just transferred to Lincoln High, hoping for a fresh start after her father's military deployment. She's standing in the crowded cafeteria, tray in hand, when three seniors surround her with phones out, laughing. Before she knows what's happening, rough hands grab her waistband. The sound of ripping fabric echoes through the suddenly silent room as her pants tear away, leaving her exposed in front of 200 students. Phones click. Laughter erupts. Sarah's face burns with humiliation as tears stream down her cheeks. But what those bullies don't know is that the quiet janitor mopping floors in the corner isn't just any custodian. He's Chief Petty Officer Marcus Webb, retired Navy SEAL, suffering from PTSD and working at his daughter's school to stay close to the only family he has left. And he just watched them destroy an innocent girl's dignity. What happens next will make those bullies wish they'd never been born. If you love your mom and dad, hit that subscribe button right now and show some love, because this story is about to get intense. Sarah Mitchell had rehearsed this moment 1,000 times in her bedroom mirror. First day at a new school. Smile. Make eye contact. Be confident. Her father's words echoed in her mind from their last video call before his deployment to the Middle East. Staff Sergeant David Mitchell had always taught her to stand tall, to face challenges head-on, to never show fear. But standing in the sprawling parking lot of Lincoln High School in suburban Virginia, watching students pour from expensive cars and gather in their established cliques, Sarah felt her carefully constructed confidence crumbling like sand between her fingers. She adjusted the straps of her backpack and took a deep breath. The September morning air was crisp, carrying the scent of freshly cut grass and the distant aroma of cafeteria breakfast. Lincoln High was a far cry from the small military base school she'd attended in Germany. This place was massive, modern, and intimidating. The building stretched across what seemed like an entire city block, all glass and steel and privilege. Sarah's worn jeans and plain blue t-shirt suddenly felt inadequate among the designer labels and carefully curated outfits surrounding her. The first 3 periods passed in a blur of introductions, syllabi, and curious stares. Sarah kept her head down, spoke when spoken to, and tried to memorize a maze like hallways. By lunch period, her stomach was churning with anxiety and hunger. She'd skipped breakfast, too nervous to eat, and now regretted that decision as she entered the massive cafeteria. The noise hit her like a physical wave. Hundreds of students talking, laughing, shouting across tables. The cafeteria was a football field of social hierarchy made visible. She could see it all clearly. The athletes dominated the center tables. The theater kids clustered near the windows. The academic overachievers sat in quiet corners with their textbooks. And everywhere, the invisible but unmistakable boundaries that separated the powerful from the powerless. Sarah grabbed a tray and moved through the lunch line, selecting a sandwich and an apple with mechanical precision. Her hands trembled slightly as she handed over her lunch account card. The cashier, a tired-looking woman with kind eyes, gave her an encouraging smile. That small gesture of warmth nearly broke Sarah's composure. Tray in hand, Sarah turned to face the cafeteria's social minefield. Where to sit? Every table seemed full, unwelcoming. She scanned the room, looking for an empty chair, a friendly face, anything. That's when she noticed a janitor in the corner, methodically mopping the floor near the emergency exit. He was older, maybe late 40s, with short graying hair and the kind of posture that spoke of military service. Something about his steady, deliberate movements was calming. Sarah decided to head toward that side of the cafeteria, thinking perhaps the less populated area would be safer. She never made it. 3 senior boys materialized around her as if they'd been waiting. The leader was tall, athletic, with perfectly styled blonde hair, and a smile that didn't reach his cold blue eyes. His Letterman jacket identified him as Tyler Branson, quarterback and, Sarah would later learn, son of a prominent local lawyer. To his left stood Marcus Chun, shorter but powerfully built, with an expression of cruel amusement. On the right was Jake Peterson, the largest of 3, a linebacker whose size made him seem older than his 17 years. Tyler's voice carried across the cafeteria with practiced projection. He was used to being heard, to commanding attention. The crowd's noise began to die down as students sensed impending entertainment. Well, 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 fresh meat, boys, Tyler announced, circling Sarah slowly like a predator. You must be the new girl. Sarah, right? I make it my business to know everyone at Lincoln. Sarah's grip tightened on her tray. Her father's voice echoed again. Stand tall. Don't show fear. But her heart was hammering against her ribs. I'm just trying to find a place to sit, Sarah said, keeping her voice as steady as she could manage. Oh, how rude of me, Tyler said with mock politeness. We should give the new girl a proper Lincoln High welcome. What do you think, guys? Should we show her how we treat people here? The cafeteria had gone nearly silent now. 200 students watching. Some looked uncomfortable, but nobody moved to help. This was clearly Tyler's domain, and nobody challenged him. Marcus Chin pulled out his phone. Camera already recording. Jake Peterson moved behind Sarah, blocking her retreat. Tyler stepped closer, his smile widening into something genuinely cruel. Here's the thing about Lincoln High, Tyler said conversationally. We have traditions, and one of our oldest traditions is making sure new students understand their place in the social order. Now, normally we'd just do something simple. Pour a drink on you, maybe knock your lunch on the floor. But you know what? I'm feeling creative today. Sarah's entire body tensed. She wanted to run, to fight, to do something, but her muscles wouldn't respond. The tray in her hands suddenly felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Marcus, Jake, hold her tray, Tyler commanded. We wouldn't want her to drop her lunch. Before Sarah could react, Marcus grabbed the tray from her hands while Jake moved closer, hemming her in. Tyler's hands shot out, grabbing the waistband of her jeans. Sarah's mind went blank with shock and terror as she felt him yank hard on her pants. The button popped. The zipper tore. And in one horrible slow-motion moment that would replay in her nightmares for months to come, Tyler ripped Sarah's jeans down to her ankles, exposing her underwear to the entire cafeteria. The sound of ripping fabric was followed by an explosion of laughter, gasps, and the clicking of phone cameras. Sarah stood frozen, unable to process what had just happened. Her face burned with a humiliation, so profound it felt like drowning. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she desperately tried to pull up her ruined jeans with shaking hands. Tyler held up the torn belt loops like trophies. Welcome to Lincoln High, he shouted to applause and laughter from dozens of students. Marcus's phone was still recording. Jake was laughing so hard he could barely stand. And Sarah was drowning in shame, her vision blurring with tears, her entire world collapsing into this single moment of degradation. Then the janitor moved. Marcus Webb had been mopping the same section of floor for 3 minutes, watching the scene unfold with growing tension in his jaw. He'd recognized the signs immediately. Predator behavior, pack mentality, the strong victimizing the weak while the crowd watched. He'd seen it in combat zones, in training exercises, in the worst parts of human nature that 20 years in naval special warfare had exposed him to. His therapist had told him to avoid confrontation, to manage his PTSD symptoms, to recognize his triggers and remove himself from situations that might cause a violent response. The scent of fear, the sound of cruelty, the sight of injustice, these were all triggers. Marcus's hands had tightened on the mop handle, his knuckles white, his breathing controlled through sheer force of will. He'd been about to walk away, to follow his therapist's advice, when Tyler ripped Sarah's pants off. The laughter that followed flipped a switch in Marcus's brain. Suddenly, he wasn't in a Virginia high school cafeteria. He was in Fallujah, watching insurgents terrorize civilians. He was in Kandahar, seeing Taliban fighters abuse women and children. He was in a dozen different hellholes across the Middle East where he'd sworn an oath to protect the innocent and punish evil. The mop clattered to the floor. Marcus crossed the cafeteria in 4 long strides, moving with a speed and grace that seemed impossible for a man his age. Students scattered from his path, sensing the barely controlled violence radiating from him like heat from a furnace. Tyler was still holding up the torn belt loops, still basking the attention and laughter, when a hand like steel cable clamped onto his shoulder and spun him around. The quarterback found himself staring into the coldest, most terrifying eyes he'd ever seen. Marcus Webb's face was calm, almost peaceful, but his eyes promised violence. You just made the biggest mistake of your life, son. Marcus said quietly. His voice carried despite its low volume, cutting through the cafeteria noise like a knife. Tyler's bravado faltered. Up close, the janitor looked different. The slouch was gone. The subservient demeanor had vanished. In its place stood something dangerous and fully capable. But Tyler was 17, arrogant, and had never faced real consequences in his privileged life. He tried to pull away, to laugh it off. "Get your hands off me, old man. You're just a janitor. You touch me, you're fired. My dad is Lawrence Branson. He'll sue this school into bankruptcy and have you arrested." Marcus's expression didn't change. "Your dad's a lawyer. That's nice. My dad was a drunk who beat me with extension cords. I became a Navy SEAL. Want to compare childhoods?" The cafeteria had gone completely silent. Even the lunch staff had stopped working to watch. This wasn't normal. This wasn't how adults behaved at Lincoln High. Jake Peterson, the linebacker, moved to intervene. He outweighed Marcus by 60 pounds and had received a full scholarship to play college football. He was used to intimidating people with his size. Jake reached out to shove Marcus away from Tyler. What happened next occurred so fast that most students couldn't follow it. Marcus's free hand shot out, grabbed Jake's extended arm, and used the linebacker's own momentum against him. A twist, a pivot, and Jake was airborne, crashing into a nearby table that collapsed under his weight. Food and trays exploded across the floor. Jake lay stunned, trying to figure out how he'd ended up on his back. Marcus still had Tyler by the shoulder. "Your friend just learned about leverage. You're about to learn about consequences." Tyler swung wildly at Marcus's face, a clumsy punch born of panic. Marcus didn't even bother to block it. He simply moved his head slightly, letting Tyler's fist pass harmlessly by his ear. Then Marcus's knee came up in a controlled, precise strike directly into Tyler's groin. The quarterback's eyes bulged. All the air left his lungs in a wheezing gasp. He folded like a lawn chair, collapsing to his knees, then falling sideways to curl into a fetal position. His face had gone from arrogant smirk to absolute agony in half a second. Marcus Chun, the only bully still standing, was frantically backing away, his phone forgotten in his hand. Marcus Webb turned his attention to the boy, crossing the distance between them in 2 steps. "Please," Marcus Chun stammered. "I didn't do anything. I just recorded it." "You just recorded it," Marcus Webb repeated, his voice dripping with contempt. "You stood there with your camera and documented a sexual assault. You know what we call people like you in the Navy? Accomplices." Marcus Webb plucked the phone from Chen's trembling hands with one swift movement. Then his other hand shot out, grabbed the boy by the collar, and pulled him close. "You have 3 seconds to unlock this phone and delete that video. If I find out you uploaded it anywhere, share it with anyone, or kept any copies, I will find you. And what just happened to your friends will seem like a gentle warning. Am I absolutely crystal clear?" Chen nodded frantically, unlocking his phone with shaking fingers and deleting the video while Marcus watched. When it was done, Marcus released him with a slight shove. Chen stumbled backward, then turned and ran from the cafeteria. The entire confrontation had taken less than 20 seconds. Tyler was still writhing on the floor, gasping for breath. Jake was pulling himself up from the wreckage of the table, his face showing newfound respect and fear. And 200 students were staring at the janitor with a mixture of shock, awe, and in some cases, satisfaction. Marcus took a deep breath, feeling the adrenaline starting to fade. His hands were shaking slightly. The triggers were still firing in his brain. But he forced himself to focus on the present, on the here and now. He turned to Sarah, who had managed to pull up her ruined jeans and was holding them together with both hands, tears still streaming down her face. His voice, when he spoke to her, was completely different. Gentle, fatherly. "You're okay now. Nobody's going to hurt you. Come with me. Let's get you to the nurse's office and find you some different clothes." Sarah nodded mutely, unable to speak through her tears and shock. Marcus carefully removed his custodial jacket and handed it to her. She wrapped around her waist, covering the torn jeans. Then Marcus placed himself between Sarah and the staring crowd, creating a protective barrier with his body as he guided her toward the cafeteria exit. Vice Principal Henderson was rushing toward them, his face red with anger and confusion. "Marcus, what the hell is going on here? Did you just assault 3 students?" Marcus stopped, still keeping Sarah behind him. His voice was calm but carried an edge that made Henderson pause. "I stopped 3 students from sexually assaulting this girl. There's about 200 witnesses. Tyler Branson ripped her pants off in front of the entire school while his friends recorded it. Check the cafeteria security cameras. If you don't believe me." Henderson's anger faltered. He looked at Sarah's tear-stained face, at the jacket wrapped around her waist, at Tyler still curled on the floor. The vice principal's expression shifted from anger to uncertainty to something like resignation. He'd worked at Lincoln High for 15 years. He knew Tyler Branson's reputation. He knew the Branson family's influence. And he knew that whatever had happened here was about to create a massive problem. "Take her to the nurse," Henderson said finally. "Then come to my office. We need to talk." Marcus nodded and continued escorting Sarah from the cafeteria. As they walked to the hallways, Sarah finally found her voice, barely a whisper. "Thank you. You didn't have to do that. You're going to get fired." Marcus shook his head. "Maybe, but some things are worth getting fired for. My daughter goes to this school. If someone did to her what they did to you, I'd want someone to stand up. I'd want someone to fight back." "You have a daughter here?" Sarah asked, surprised. "Sophomore, Emily Webb. She's in the band. Plays clarinet." Marcus's voice softened when he mentioned his daughter. "I took this job to be close to her after my wife died. PTSD was making it hard to work normal jobs. But being here, seeing her during the day, it helps." They reached the nurse's office. The school nurse, Mrs. Patterson, took one look at Sarah's face and Marcus's expression and immediately understood that something serious had happened. She ushered Sarah inside, found her some spare gym clothes from the lost and found, and gave her privacy to change while Marcus waited outside. Marcus sat on the bench in the hallway, his hand still trembling slightly. The adrenaline crash was hitting hard now. He could feel the familiar symptoms of a PTSD episode approaching. Racing heart, difficulty breathing, the sense that he was still in danger. He closed his eyes and practiced the breathing exercises his therapist had taught him. 4 counts in, hold for 4. 4 counts out, hold for 4. The office door opened and Emily Webb appeared, having been called from her class. She saw her father sitting on the bench and immediately knew something was wrong. At 15, Emily had become an expert at reading her father's moods, at recognizing when the demons from his past were catching up to him. "Dad," she said softly, sitting beside him and taking his hand. "What happened?" Marcus opened his eyes and looked at his daughter. Emily had her mother's gentle brown eyes and her father's stubborn chin. She was the only thing keeping him tethered to sanity most days. "I did something stupid," he said quietly. "I let my anger control me. I hurt some kids who were bullying a new student." Emily's eyes widened. "The cafeteria thing? Dad, everyone's talking about it. Tyler Branson and his friends tried to pants that new girl, Sarah, and you beat them up. You're kind of a legend right now." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not a legend. I'm a janitor who just assaulted minors. I'm probably going to jail, or at least lose my job." "You protected someone who needed protecting," Emily said firmly. "That's what you've always done. That's what Mom loved about you. You can't see someone getting hurt and not help. It's who you are." Before Marcus could respond, Vice Principal Henderson appeared at the end of the hallway with 2 police officers. Marcus's stomach dropped. This was it. He was going to be arrested in front of his daughter. But Henderson's expression was complicated, not simply angry. He approached slowly, the officers flanking him. "Marcus, these officers need to take your statement about what happened. Sarah Mitchell has also given her statement. We reviewed the security footage." One of the officers, an older man with gray hair and understanding eyes, stepped forward. "Mr. Webb, I'm Officer Daniels. We've reviewed the cafeteria security footage. We've also spoken with multiple witnesses. What those boys did to Sarah Mitchell constitutes sexual assault. What you did was intervene to stop an ongoing assault and protect the victim. However, the force you use is being questioned. The second officer, younger and less sympathetic, added, "Tyler Branson's father is demanding we arrest you for assault. He's claiming you attacked his son without provocation." Marcus stood, gently squeezing Emily's hand before releasing it. "I understand. I'm willing to cooperate fully. I accept responsibility for my actions." Officer Daniels held up a hand. "Before we go any further, you should know that 17 students have already come forward to give statements supporting your version of events. The security footage clearly shows Tyler Branson sexually assaulting Sarah Mitchell. It shows his friends restraining her and recording the assault, and it shows you intervening only after the assault had occurred. Several students are also reporting that this isn't the first time Tyler and his friends have engaged in this behavior." Henderson cleared his throat. "We're conducting a full investigation. Tyler Branson, Marcus Chun, and Jake Peterson are being suspended pending expulsion hearings. Their parents have been called. And Marcus, I need you to understand something. You're not being fired. What you did was wrong in terms of procedure. You should have called for help instead of taking matters into your own hands. But what you did was also right. You protected a student when no one else would." The younger officer looked frustrated. "This isn't that simple. Lawrence Branson is threatening to sue the school, sue Webb personally, and file criminal charges. He's got connections all the way to the governor's office." Officer Daniels shook his head. "And the district attorney has 17 student witnesses, security footage, and a clear-cut case of sexual assault against his son. Lawrence Branson can threaten all he wants. The law is the law. Tyler committed a crime. Webb stopped it." What followed was 3 hours of statements, interviews, and legal consultation. Sarah's parents were called. Her mother, a composed woman who worked as a paralegal, arrived within 30 minutes and immediately began documenting everything for potential legal action. When she learned what Marcus had done, she hugged him with tears in her eyes and thanked him for protecting her daughter. Tyler Branson's father did indeed show up, loud and threatening, demanding Marcus's arrest and termination. But when Officer Daniels showed him security footage, when he explained that 17 students were willing to testify against his son, when he made it clear that Tyler was facing serious criminal charges for sexual assault, Lawrence Branson's bluster deflated somewhat. He switched tactics, offering to make the whole thing go away if charges against his son were dropped. The district attorney, a woman named Patricia Flores, who had built her career on prosecuting sexual assault cases, shut that down immediately. "Your son sexually assaulted a minor in front of 200 witnesses and on security camera, Mr. Branson. There's no making this go away. He'll be charged as a juvenile, and he'll face the full consequences of his actions." By the end of the day, the full story had emerged. Tyler Branson and his friends had been bullying students for years. They'd targeted newcomers, especially girls, with increasingly aggressive pranks and assaults. They'd created a culture of fear at Lincoln High, where nobody felt safe reporting them because of their family's wealth and influence. But Sarah Mitchell had become the breaking point. Her assault had been too public, too documented, too impossible to ignore. The fallout was swift and comprehensive. Tyler Branson, Marcus Chun, and Jake Peterson were expelled from Lincoln High and faced juvenile criminal charges. Their college scholarships and athletic futures evaporated overnight. Lawrence Branson's law firm lost several major clients when word spread about his attempts to protect his son from consequences. Vice Principal Henderson announced his retirement, acknowledging that he'd failed to create a safe environment for students. Emily watched her father slowly heal as well. The nightmares didn't completely stop. The PTSD didn't simply vanish. But Marcus learned to manage his symptoms better. He continued therapy. He built a support network of other veterans. And he found meaning in his work protecting students, including his own daughter. On the last day of the school year, Sarah gave a speech at the Academic Award ceremony. She'd won the school's Courage Award, nominated by dozens of students and faculty who'd watched her transformation. In her speech, she talked about fear and strength, about the importance of standing up for others, about the adults in our lives who model integrity, even when it costs them. She ended her speech looking directly at Marcus, who stood in the back of the auditorium in his security uniform. Emily beside him. "Someone once told me that some things are worth getting fired for, worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. That person taught me that standing up for what's right isn't always easy or safe, but it's always necessary. He taught me that one person can make a difference. That one moment of courage can change everything. To Mr. Webb and to everyone who refuses to look away when someone needs help, thank you. You make this world safer. You make it better. And you give the rest of us the courage to do the same. The auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Emily hugged him tightly, whispering, "Mom would be so proud of you, Dad." 3 years later, Sarah Mitchell graduated valedictorian of her class with a full scholarship to Georgetown University, where she planned to study law with a focus on victim advocacy. Tyler Branson was serving his sentence in a juvenile detention facility, where he'd earned his GED and was reportedly participating in counseling and rehabilitation programs. His path to redemption was long and uncertain, but at least it existed. Marcus Webb continued his work at Lincoln High, eventually becoming the school's director of safety and student welfare. He created programs that were adopted by school districts across the state. He trained teachers and administrators on recognizing and responding to bullying. And he continued to be a quiet, steady presence in the hallways, a reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear custodial uniforms and carry mops. Sometimes they're broken and healing and struggling with their own demons, but they show up anyway. They stand between the vulnerable and the predators, and they make the world a little bit safer, one intervention at a time. Emily Webb graduated 2 years after Sarah and followed her own path to college. Carried with her the lessons she'd learned from watching her father choose courage over comfort, justice over safety, and protection of the innocent over self-preservation. She became a social worker specializing in trauma recovery, helping others heal the way her father had helped Sarah. The story of the cafeteria incident became a legend at Lincoln High, told and retold to new students each year. Details changed and embellishments were added, as happens with all stories passed through multiple tellings. But the core truth remained. A new girl was victimized by bullies, and a quiet janitor, a veteran struggled with his own battles, stepped forward when nobody else would. He delivered swift justice. He protected the innocent. And he reminded everyone watching that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about acting despite fear. It's about standing up when it would be easier to look away. Years later, Sarah Mitchell, now a successful attorney specializing in sexual assault prosecution, would tell that story to her own children. She'd tell them about the worst day of her high school life and about the man who intervened. She'd tell them about the importance of standing up for others. This response paused because Claude reached its max length for a message. Hit continued to nudge Claude along. Continue Claude is AI and can make mistakes. Please double-check responses. About the responsibility we all share to protect the vulnerable. And she'd tell them that one person, acting with courage and conviction in a critical moment, can change the trajectory of lives, can shift the culture of entire communities, and can remind us all that justice, real justice, sometimes comes from unexpected places. The story would live on because stories like this need to live on. They remind us of our better angels. They show us what's possible when people choose right over easy. And they prove that sometimes, when the bullies think they've won, when they think nobody will stop them, a quiet hero emerges from the shadows and delivers exactly the justice they deserve. So where are you watching this from? Drop a comment and let us know what part of the country you call home. And if the story moved you, if it reminded you why courage matters and why we all need to stand up for each other, make sure you're subscribed because we got more incredible true stories coming your way. Emily watched her father slowly heal as well. The nightmares didn't completely stop. The PTSD didn't simply vanish. But Marcus learned to manage his symptoms better. He continued therapy. He built a support network of other veterans. And he found meaning in his work protecting students, including his own daughter. On the last day of the school year, Sarah gave a speech at the Academic Award ceremony. She'd won the school's Courage Award, nominated by dozens of students and faculty who'd watched her transformation. In her speech, she talked about fear and strength, about the importance of standing up for others, about the adults in our lives who model integrity even when it cost them. She ended her speech looking directly at Marcus, who stood in the back of the auditorium in a security uniform. Emily beside him. Someone once told me that some things are worth getting fired for, worth fighting for, worth risking everything for. That person taught me that standing up for what's right isn't always easy or safe, but it's always necessary. He taught me that one person can make a difference. That one moment of courage can change everything. To Mr. Webb and to everyone who refuses to look away when someone needs help, thank you. You make this world safer. You make it better. And you give the rest of us the courage to do the same. The auditorium erupted in applause. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. Emily hugged him tightly, whispering, "Mom would be so proud of you, Dad." 3 years later, Sarah Mitchell graduated valedictorian of her class with a full scholarship to Georgetown University, where she planned to study law with a focus on victim advocacy. Tyler Branson was serving his sentence in a juvenile detention facility, where he'd earned his GED and was reportedly participating in counseling and rehabilitation programs. His path to redemption was long and uncertain, but at least it existed. Marcus Webb continued his work at Lincoln High, eventually becoming the school's director of safety and student welfare. He created programs that were adopted by school districts across the state. He trained teachers and administrators on recognizing and responding to bullying, and he continued to be a quiet, steady presence in the hallways, a reminder that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they wear custodial uniforms and carry mops. Sometimes they're broken and healing and struggling with their own demons, but they show up anyway. They stand between the vulnerable and the predators, and they make the world a little bit safer, one intervention at a time.